I didn't think topping No Way Home would even be possible, but I just took a look at my calendar and it told me it's a brand new day. What's amazing, y'all, is after watching Brand New Day the first time, I walked out of a theater a little disappointed. I would have given it probably about an 8.5 out of 10 at that point. Let me tell you the reason why. It's because of all the theories I'd heard online. I'd heard so many theories that I think when I got to the theater and I watched the movie, because the movie wasn't exactly what I heard it was going to be, I walked away feeling like something was missing. But after watching it a second time and a third time, yes, I've seen it 3 times as well, I stopped judging the movie off of my preconceived expectations and started judging the movie on what it was. And what it was amazing, spectacular, superior. It was an experience I wish I could experience for the first time again. So let's talk about it. And honestly, the movie wastes no time jumping straight back in. But for anyone who hasn't watched the movie yet, there will be spoilers in this video. So this is your official spoiler warning. So the opening perfectly ties in the ending of No Way Home. So we see Peter as a fully realized Spider-Man. The opening montage of the different villains was amazing. And again, you got to see Spider-Man overcome some of the fears he had in the past. As rewatching Homecoming, you can see how scared he was of heights, but you see some moves where it just shows how mature he's grown as Spider-Man. But they also show the personal turmoil Peter Parker has been going through, as you see him on his phone looking at his friends Ned and MJ, seeing their lives move forward, while all his life is about now is being Spider-Man. What's amazing about this movie is, to me, it's the complete inverse of Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire. As Spider-Man 2 touched on Spider-Man no more, Brand New Day touches on Peter Parker no more. For a majority of the movie, Peter Parker truly didn't exist. It was Spider-Man. Another awesome part about the opening was just how good the CGI looked. So if by chance any VFX artist that's worked on this film or any MCU film, just any film in general, watches this, thank you so much for the hard work that you guys do. You guys have such a thankless job, but without y'all, these movies wouldn't exist. So thank you guys so much, genuinely, for the hard work you do. But as great as that opening scene was, what it really established for me is that this finally felt like a Spider-Man movie. New York felt alive. The city felt real. You saw Spider-Man saving citizens. That's one thing I think Tobey's movies did so well. New York was part of the movie. And in this movie, New York was as well. But on top of that, the stakes felt smaller but more personal. This movie grounded Spider-Man to New York. And I think by doing so, it gave us a more personal look at both Spider-Man, but Peter Parker as well. The ending of the movie was great, as well as I felt something when the crowd was cheering for Spider-Man. I was like, yes, this is it. This is the feeling that I'm supposed to get from watching Spider-Man. And part of why this version of Spider-Man feels so complete is that Peter Parker himself has changed tremendously. And I genuinely think this is Tom Holland's best performance as Spider-Man. The quips, the confidence, because Spider-Man is supposed to be confident. But the props I give to Tom Holland is that because he was in the suit for so much of a movie, so much of his performance was on his voice and his physical movements. And he did a great job One of the scenes that really highlighted that for me is a scene by the DODC. And at that point, of course, we don't know it's, again, spoiler alert, Jean Grey. But as Jean is hopping through the different people and Spider-Man gets to the roof and she jumps into the last guard and the guard is about to jump off the roof. And the way Spider-Man just webbed him through the web grenade, I was just like, man, he was truly moving like Insomniac Spider-Man. Like, it was so effortless. And the suit, I can't believe I haven't even touched on the suit yet. The suit was chef's kiss. But what was great about this movie as well was just the balance. Because I feel like the more Spider-Man won, the more Peter Parker lost. And I think that's just Spider-Man as a character, right? It's consistently playing this balancing game, because as much as we saw the confidence in Spider-Man, we also saw the social anxiety in Peter Parker. For instance, after he saw Ned in the bodega and he followed him back to the party, and you just saw Peter there, just off to the side, nervously taking his drink, and you really felt his isolation and his depression. You can't do it alone. So as much as, yes, he was excelling as Spider-Man, he wasn't excelling as a person because he was trying to do it all by himself. But ironically, for a movie that Peter spends so much time as Spider-Man, the moments that hit the hardest for me were the moments underneath the mask, when we focused on Peter Parker, the character. I was not prepared for how emotional this movie got. Again, that moment that Peter saw Ned for the first time. And that's why I was so happy when Peter decided to follow Ned on the train, which brought him to the house with MJ and Ned. And it just showed that through those years, he never stopped thinking about them. So that's why that scene that hit so hard as well is when, after he brought MJ back home, and we'll get to MJ in a second, but after he brought MJ back home and she invited him upstairs to see Ned, you could just feel an emotional burden being lifted off of Peter, being with Ned and being with MJ again. And the moment that broke me the most, I think, was when he said, "I really missed you guys." Yeah, it just showed how healing that was for Peter. Because he had lost, when you think about it, he had lost everything. So to have that moment of just being able to even express, because who would he have told? He had no one to talk to. No one who understood what he went through and what he was going through. And if seeing Peter with Ned was tough, seeing Peter and MJ was even tougher, because you knew just how much he cared about her and cared for her, and the promise he made to her at the end of No Way Home, the letter he wrote, and then the reason he decided not to, that in itself felt so Spider-Man, right? It felt so selfless of him to deny himself the possibility of reconnecting with the love of his life, and he chose to put her safety and her protection first over how he felt. So to then see her with this douchebag, who is this guy? Is that Paul? So yeah, that broke Peter, that broke him, and that, I think, is what helped accelerate his mutation. That's why the moment on the roof was so heartbreaking. That scene, Tom Holland's acting was phenomenal. And then to follow up that scene with the moment on the ship where she actually finds the letter and she says, I don't love you. I don't even know you. And what I love about the movie is that you can understand both perspectives. Obviously, we're rooting for Peter, we're rooting for Spider-Man, right? We want to see them back together, and we know what happened in No Way Home. We know the sacrifice he made. We know how much they cared about each other and how MJ wanted Peter to seek her after. But then we also got to think about it from MJ's perspective, because she has no memory of this guy. So I think even as devastating as that was, it still showed the decency in MJ, because for after that swing ride home, for her to still feel for this guy who she really doesn't know and invite him up to her place to see Ned, that in itself shows the heart that she has. But that ties me into another big thing I loved about this movie was the movie allowed emotional moments to breathe. Like the scene at Frank's house when MJ told Peter that she doesn't love him. She doesn't even know him. There was no joke. There was no cut away to another scene. It just stayed there for a while. It allowed those two characters to be in that moment, and it allowed us as an audience to experience it with them. But Peter wasn't carrying this movie alone, as a supporting cast on Spider-Man Brand New Day was stacked. First of all, Frank Castle, the Punisher. I think they found a great way to balance his aggressiveness, his more violent tendencies in the world of Spider-Man. Because if y'all have seen the Punisher series, you know how brutal it is. What I love is that it showed a different side of him. It humanized his character so much. So by humanizing him, it didn't feel like, oh, well, normally he's rated R and now he's just PG-13. It didn't feel like that. It just felt like we were getting another layer of his character. But that leads me to Jean Grey. And I think Sadie did such a great job playing Jean. The moment where she finally got into Peter's mind near the end, and it was Aunt May talking to her. Again, I'm getting chills. It's like, I think that was just so well done, because this is a character who had been disowned by her family, from the people who were supposed to care about her the most. And all she had in life was her sister. And to have her sister taken from her and killed, I don't want to begin to imagine what that must feel like, right? So you can feel, once again, you can feel her pain. And I think throughout the movie just did so well in helping you feel where each of the characters were coming from. Yeah, it really showed just how, to me, a parallel between this movie and the Thunderbolts. And it's kind of funny that Yelena's in this one as well. That in the end, Bob just needed a hug. Sometimes that's all we need. We just need a hug. You know, we all face challenges, hurdles, tough times, and sometimes all we need is a hug and to just be understood and like, hey, I got you. You know, I got you. And I think that was a breaking point for her, is when Aunt May hugged her, and then to have Peter sit next to her and she said, I've got no one. And Peter was like, you've got me. You know, like, amazing. So this, to me, I kind of see as almost like a spiritual successor to Thunderbolts, because it touched on so many of the same elements. With that connective tissue being Yelena. Yelena was great. She wasn't a small potato, but she was definitely a big potato. She was great. It just felt so cool seeing her. And that, to me, is what the MCU has been missing, is just more connective tissues where it feels like a shared universe. So again, seeing Yelena in this was awesome, but also seeing Bruce Banner as Hulk. Mark Ruffalo was great in this, but having the conversation with Peter and Bruce just showed how smart and intellectual both of these characters were. But what was great is we got, firstly, kind of the Professor Hulk persona. And Professor Hulk has never been scarier than he was here. But then for him to become an actual savage Hulk. No Banner, no girl. Only Hulk. Crazy. But with all these characters in this incredible movie, another amazing part of it was the action and the choreography. Peter was moving like Insomniac Spider-Man, and that's the biggest compliment ever. I mean, there was such a mastery of his skills and fluidity to his motion. It was really cool. And I think the highlight beyond the Hulk fight has got to be when he's fighting the Hand. I mean, when he dodged the shuriken, he was moving like Neo from the Matrix. And then to end that scene by him breaking down the door, I mean, that truly leads me into the next point, which is, this is no debate at this point. This is the strongest Spider-Man we've seen yet. I mean, when he lifted up the boat propeller, this Spider-Man is on a different level now. Another scene that to me proves this point is when he was shot by the Punisher. For him to, number one, fight Jean's mind control. Remember, this is when Jean's power was fully unleashed, right? This is after she experienced the grief of finding out her sister was killed. And he was able to still fight through her mind control and still sense that this thing was coming while being under her control. Turn his body to take the bullet. And remember, he didn't even fall down. His body absorbed the force of this bullet to the point he was blasted back, but he was still standing up and still holding her up. That to me just shows how strong that Peter is. I mean, leave a comment if you disagree, but strength and choreography only get you so far. To me, what made these scenes hit so much harder was the way they were made. The cinematography in this movie was, again, chef's kiss. And by far, I think this is the best looking live action Spider-Man we've gotten. Some standout scenes to me. The scene near the end where Peter's up on the skyscraper and MJ's on the same roof she was in No Way Home. That scene looked beautiful, just absolutely beautiful. Another scene which was amazing was when Peter was struggling with the arachnid DNA taking over, and he came outside and his spider sense was, he was being overwhelmed by hearing all the different sounds. That scene was incredible too. The camera placements, the color, all of that to me lent hand in hand to telling an incredible story. Now, I've obviously spent this entire video basically praising this movie, but there are a few criticisms that I have. So as I mentioned before, one of the big criticisms I have, which is still minor, is just some form of explanation as to what happened with Scorpion. Because as much as I loved his inclusion in the movie, I feel like there was something that was lacking in it for me. Especially when you consider how much he hated Spider-Man in Homecoming. So to know that one of the big fight scenes with Scorpion and Spider-Man was actually Jean Grey controlling him, to me that took away from that a little bit. I would have just loved some line of dialogue, something that would have tied into more seamlessly his hate for Spider-Man that was expressed at the end of Homecoming. So that's one. And I've already touched on some explanation as to how he got the suit. Again, minor, but considering he never had it before, it's like, where did this come from? The villain montage at the beginning as well. It was really cool, but I won't lie. I wish one or two of those fight scenes was just a little bit longer. So those are really my only criticisms of the movie. And weirdly enough, my favorite part of a movie isn't a Spider-Man moment. It's a Peter Parker moment. It's near the end where Peter decides in a moment that he doesn't need to be Spider-Man, where he allows the cops to do their job. And he sees Ned, and you could see for a second he's contemplating, do I talk to him? Do I leave? But he decides to go up and approach him and reintroduce himself. And you could see it kind of catches Ned off guard. But when they share that handshake and it ends with Ned saying, Peter, it shows that Peter saw in that moment that he is Peter Parker as much as he's Spider-Man. It's two sides of the same coin. And that's why the ending of the movie was just so perfect to me, because for majority of the movie, it's not that he had a problem being Spider-Man or he forgot how to do that. It's just that he forgot to make himself and his feelings and his emotions a priority as well. And by the end of the movie, I feel like we've left Peter in a much better place than we left him at the end of No Way Home. So if you ask me what I rate this movie out of 10, at this point, it's 9.5. Although, give me another watch and it may be 10. So if you haven't watched Spider-Man Brand New Day yet, I absolutely recommend you do. And if you have, be sure to let me know down in the comment section below, what was your favorite moment? Where does this movie rank in your rankings of all the Spider-Man movies? I'll actually be doing a separate video on that. Also, let me know what you think about his suit, the story, the ending. I want to hear all of it. So y'all, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe. More videos like this coming soon. So love y'all. God bless, and I'll see you next time. Peace.